Okay, everyone. Um, this is the second of the sort of makeup presentations that I'm going to be posting to Canvas to help you finish up the remaining activities you need to do to succeed in this course in EN2321, Modern and Contemporary Fiction. So we're going to be talking today about writing literary critical essays, and this is obviously important because you're going to be writing a term paper which is worth 50 points or 50% of the course mark. This is just an excerpt that you're looking at now from the assignment, which is available on Canvas. It's no more than 1,000 words long, including all footnotes and references, and it will deal with any one or more of the 4 primary texts covered in the course. It's due on Tuesday, the 10th of December. Late submissions, 10% per day for a maximum of 3 days, and then you will receive 0. So one of the most important things you can do to succeed on this assignment is to submit on time. Secondly, if you notice the red text here, very important that you submit original work written for this course. If you submit work that you have copied from the internet, if you submit work that you submitted to a previous course, you will be caught for academic dishonesty, and that is a disciplinary offense. So please, please, please don't even consider such a thing. No matter how much difficulty you're having with the work, writing your own essay is the only way to succeed. Going on, there's the basic description of the term paper. You need to, 1, situate your chosen text in a broader literary historical context. So you've got to create some sort of framework for your discussion of a novel. You then need to, very important, develop a focused critical claim about the text. So you're going to make an argument, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And you're going to contextualize this claim within the critical tradition. Part 3 means that you can't just give me your own ideas. You're going to need to do some research in the secondary materials by going to the library or by using the online resources available from the library. Luckily, there are many of those to support your claim. You should have the following parts in your term paper: a title page, an abstract, the essay itself with an introduction, a main body, and a conclusion, and a works cited section. I'm posting to Canvas a sample in terms of formatting. So this is what the main body of the essay should look like. You'll see it's Times New Roman 12.1.5 spacing, and you can see I have my page references at the end of the sentence in MLA style. And this will be followed by a works cited list, and these are just a few example works cited entries. Remember, this has nothing to do with the content of your term paper. This is just to help you get the format right. Okay, more generally, academic writing. Well, what should academic writing be like? Some of you may be working on your first sort of examples of academic writing. Well, here's a couple of key words. It should be organized, it should be clear, and it should be logical. Okay, it should be well supported by evidence. We'll talk about that more. It should be accurate, both in terms of fact and in terms of your use of language. So if you write about the crying of Lot 49 and you tell me it was published in 1866, that is inaccurate. It should be objective. It's not subjective. You're not just giving your own opinion. You're developing your opinion within an objective framework. It should be standard. By this I mean that it should adhere to the standards of the discipline, in this case literary studies and MLA 8. It should also be interesting. You want to catch my attention. As you're writing, you should remember that writing is not just something you sit down and do the night before the deadline. There is a process involved. You need to do some pre-writing. You need to read and reread. You need to think of ideas. You need to collect information. You need to take notes. You need to do brainstorming. You then need to plan your essay. So you take that information you've gathered during the pre-writing phase and you use a variety of tools like mind mapping or listing to develop a thesis and to outline the main steps you're going to take in your essay. Developing a thesis is particularly important. The thesis, remember, is the central claim, the central focused claim you're going to make about the text you are discussing. You are going to draft, you're going to get text down on paper, you're going to write. You focus on development, organization, and elaboration of ideas. So don't worry about making mistakes at this point. Just write. You can even use, for example, what do we call it? the technique where you speak to your computer and it writes for you. I can't believe I'm blanking on this. Well, you're used to that from my teaching, aren't you? But you know what I mean. You can set your computer up so that if you talk to it, it will write down what you say with some mistakes. You're then going to go through reflection and feedback. This is an important point. You need to think about what you've written. You need to put it aside for a day or two and then come back and look at it again. Ideally, you can also share it with one of your classmates and get some peer feedback, and they can tell you this is good, this is bad, I didn't understand this, maybe you could improve that. Then based on that self-feedback and peer feedback, you're going to revise. You'll develop your ideas, you'll clarify them, you'll change the structure, you may change the argument, you may introduce new evidence and take away evidence. And finally, editing and proofreading. This is the last thing you do before you submit, and you're paying attention to the surface level of the text, to the formatting, the references, the spelling, the English language, to make sure you're using the language accurately. You get your dictionary out and check the meaning of the words you've used. Okay, so that's the writing process. I'm going to introduce now 3 ways of thinking about essays that might help you sort of consider what you're trying to do. So here's the first way. This is a Greek temple. Imagine that this is an essay. At the top of this Greek temple, what's called the pediment, this is where you would put your thesis, your claim, your main idea. Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness is a critique of 19th century colonialism. Okay, that's an obvious claim, but there it is. That's sitting at the top of this temple. The pillars, the vertical structures that are holding up the pediment of this temple, these are the arguments you're going to make. And the point is that each one of these columns, each one of these arguments has to support your thesis, right? And you need a certain number of them to keep it straight. So that's one way of thinking about an essay. Another way is simply to think of it in terms of an outline. You've got an introduction, you've got a main body, you've got a conclusion, and you've got your references. And within the main body, each paragraph has sub-arguments linked to the overall argument, and you present evidence and you evaluate it. Maybe you have counter-evidence and you make a concession or a refutation, some idea that goes against your own idea. So this is a very standard essay outline. A more interesting way, perhaps, of thinking about an essay is what I like to call the court case essay outline. So for example, if I say, you killed my goldfish, I'm making an accusation, I'm making a claim. This is like a thesis. Now, if I want to prove that you killed my goldfish, I need to provide evidence, right? You're not going to just believe me. There are different types of evidence we can provide. There's forensic evidence, fingerprints, blood stains. There are witnesses. People might have seen that I went into your room and killed your goldfish, or you went into my room and killed my goldfish. Excuse me, you're the murderer, not me. So this is, you know, the evidence of other people's views. And finally, we have logical deduction. Well, it's actually not finally. Logical deduction is an important thing. You know, my goldfish was in my bedroom. I saw you go into my bedroom. I saw you leave my bedroom. When I went into my bedroom, my goldfish was dead. Therefore, you killed my goldfish. Finally, we have an emotional appeal. I want to convince the jury, the reader, as it were, that my case is sound. I may use emotional appeal. These 4 types of evidence correlate to essay writing. Forensic evidence we might think of as quotations, as facts, as indisputable truths about the text in question, which we can assemble as part of our argument. So if you quote from page 66 of Zadie Smith N.W., that is a piece of forensic evidence. It's not enough on its own, but it's part of a court case, part of your thesis. A witness, in this case, an expert witness would be other readers of the novel. So this is where you do your secondary reading. You could go to the library, find an essay, go online, find an essay about Zadie Smith's N.W. where someone else agrees with the claim you are making about the novel, and that would make it stronger. Logical deduction. These are basic claims. If, then, therefore, because, since, unless. All of that language, all of that logical argumentation. You know, I could say that Zadie Smith's N.W. Is published in the 21st century, therefore we must read it as an example of contemporary literature. And because it's contemporary, it must deal with contemporary issues. So these are logical claims. Finally, less important is emotional appeal, but you want your argument, your court case, your essay to make an emotional impact on me. This is less important than the other three types of evidence. But you want to use good writing, quality writing. You want me to feel like what you're saying is important. Okay. As you're writing, you also want to think about your paragraphs. Paragraphs have very basic structures. I'm sure you all know this already. You often begin a paragraph with a transition, a link to a previous paragraph, a topic sentence, which is the main point of every paragraph. If your paragraph does not have a topic sentence and you can't point to that topic sentence, it's a bad paragraph. Then you're going to extend that. You sort of define or restate. You support with quotes and examples. You may include an opposing argument. Not always, you may. And then you're going to have some sort of concluding sentence, sum up the paragraph or link to the next paragraph. And you just do that again and again. Here's an example. So the transition, another way Engelbert Humperdinck's novel Red Fish Tastes Good represents women. So another way, this implies that the previous paragraph has talked about this before. And then we have the topic sentence, is an inherent part of nature, represents women as an inherent part of nature. There's an explanation. Many female characters in the novel are compared to different objects in the natural world. So this is explaining what I mean and sort of extending the argument. Development and support, for example, they are described as, quote, trees growing free and waters running smooth. That's what Humperdinck says on page 45. There is a concession. It is true, as Dorothy L. Rumpelsticker argues, that they are also compared to machines, but this only happens once in the novel. So you take someone else's idea, which is different from your idea, and then you sort of get rid of it. And then a concluding sentence, overall, Red Fish Tastes Good offers a vision of women as close to the natural world. So I'm restating my main claim here. As you'll notice with words like another and overall, linking words are extremely important as we're writing. There are three main types of linking words: subordinators, sentence connectors, and phrase linkers. And there's a number of different ways we can use them: additions, oppositions, cause and effect, clarification, contrast, illustration, and intensification. And this little chart will give you some language you can use in these cases. Okay. I mentioned that you have to situate your argument in a critical context. You have to use secondary literature. Secondary literature are what other people have had to say. Well, why? These citations are tools of persuasion, which can give your arguments greater authority. They also demonstrate your familiarity with the scholarly field. So you're proving to your reader that you are familiar with what has been said about this topic before. It's a way of showing respect to previous scholars, and it's a way of creating research space by describing what has been done and what has not been done. So these are some of the reasons that you might use citations or secondary sources. How do you do this? There's three main ways: quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. Quoting is the most basic of these, perhaps the most important, where you take the original text and you take some small piece of the original text and put it inside of quotation marks. Ian Allan Paul claims that although, quote, the subjective nature of our experience has arrived as a driving problematic with an American film, end quote, this is by no means a new phenomenon, nor will it, quote, dissolve anytime soon, end quote. And then you have the page number at the end of that quotation. Notice that the quotation is not by itself in a sentence. The quotation is integrated into our own writing. We talked about this in class. The second way is paraphrasing. This is where you're more interested in the idea than the language. And what you're doing is taking a substantial chunk of the original text and transforming it into your own words. You're keeping exactly the same idea, but you're putting it into your own words. Again, we need the page reference. Finally, summarizing is where you take a long, extensive passage of another person's work. Here we have 2 pages, page 48 and 49, and you summarize it in a few simple words of your own. Notice the word suggests here. This is what's called a reporting verb. We have really 2 types of reporting verbs, which are objective and evaluative. Objective reporting verbs don't really present your opinion about what you are summarizing or paraphrasing, whereas evaluative verbs do give your opinion. So for example, if you say that he alleges, you are kind of indicating that you don't agree with him. And there's a couple of comparisons here: describes, contends, explains, makes it clear. Finally, the last thing I want to go to is MLA style. You have been asked to submit your term paper in MLA 8 style. It's a very easy, very basic style to use, and the Purdue University online writing laboratory has all the information you could possibly use about it at this link. Okay, I'm going to wrap up there. Thank you very much. Good luck writing your essays. Again, I will open a discussion forum online where you can post any questions you have. Looks something like this. So here is the title page. It has a title that is just an example title, your name, your email, your student number, and then there's an abstract. The abstract is a 100-word summary of your essay. So you should summarize very briefly the major parts of your essay: your introduction, your thesis, the main evidence you provide, and your conclusion. So basically what you want to do is boil down your 1,000-word essay into a 100-word summary of the essay. Okay? So then what you'll see when you look at this document available on Canvas is that you could actually just take this document and paste in your own text. Ignore the content. This is simply to help you